You think you are completely immune? You believe that only broken, gullible, or desperate people hand over their life savings and free will to a charismatic stranger. But your brain is lying to you right now. The terrifying truth is that high intelligence doesn't protect you from psychological manipulation. It actually makes you a better target. Cult leaders don't want stupid followers. They want capable, idealistic minds they can weaponize. So, why do brilliant doctors, lawyers, and critical thinkers willingly surrender their reality to someone else? How does a completely normal person wake up one day ready to commit unspeakable acts for a leader they just met? And most importantly, what is the invisible psychological switch they flip in your brain to make you beg for the cage? We are programmed to believe cults recruit people by force or fear. But human psychology is much darker. Cult leaders do not ambush you in a dark alley. They ambush you with empathy. It starts with a psychological mechanism called love bombing. When you first encounter a highly manipulative group, they do not show you their rules. They show you a fabricated utopia. They overwhelm you with intense affection, validation, and a profound sense of belonging. They mirror your deepest insecurities and tell you that you are uniquely special. Your brain reacts to this exactly the way it reacts to a highly addictive substance. The sudden rush of validation triggers a massive release of dopamine and oxytocin, the neurochemicals responsible for bonding and trust. You aren't making a logical decision to join a group. You are getting chemically addicted to how they make you feel. But this affection is not a gift. It is an anesthetic. Once your brain associates the leader with absolute safety, the hacking begins. And the first target is your physical biology. Have you ever wondered why extreme groups always seem to have bizarre diets, intense fasting rules, or endless late-night meetings? It is not about spiritual purity. It is about a psychological vulnerability called ego depletion. Your prefrontal cortex is the part of your brain responsible for critical thinking, skepticism, and analyzing danger. But this region requires an immense amount of physical energy to function. By subtly restricting your sleep, altering your diet, and keeping you constantly engaged in group activities, the cult starves your prefrontal cortex of glucose. They intentionally exhaust you. When your brain is physically depleted, your natural defense mechanisms collapse. You stop questioning logical inconsistencies. You stop analyzing their demands. You just accept what you were told because your brain literally lacks the biological energy to fight back. But exhausting the brain is only the first step. To truly hack a human being, you have to rewrite their reality. How do they do it? They steal your vocabulary. Psychologists refer to this as loaded language, or thought-terminating cliches. If you want to control what someone thinks, you must control the words they use to think. Cult leaders invent highly specific jargon, acronyms, and phrases that only group members understand. But these aren't just inside jokes. They are psychological stop signs. When a follower begins to experience a critical thought or a moment of doubt, the group trains them to recite a thought-terminating cliché. A simple, undeniable phrase like, "Trust the vision," "Doubt is the enemy," or "That is worldly thinking." The moment the brain accesses this cliché, the cognitive process of doubting literally shuts down. The phrase acts as a mental wall, preventing the follower from processing complex logic. If you delete the words required to express rebellion, rebellion becomes psychologically impossible. You see this mechanism every day outside of cults. Think about toxic corporate environments that dismiss all legitimate criticism by labeling you not a team player. They are using the exact same linguistic hack to terminate your critical thinking. Once your language is controlled, the cult leader begins the most dangerous phase, the identity overwrite. They need you to commit an act that violates your own moral code. Why? Because of a powerful psychological force called cognitive dissonance. The human brain cannot tolerate the psychological pain of holding two conflicting beliefs. If you believe you are a good, rational person, but the leader forces you to do something irrational, like cutting off contact with your family, your brain experiences intense distress. To resolve this distress, your brain has to make a choice. It must either admit that you have been manipulated and made a terrible mistake, or it must convince you that cutting off your family was actually a brilliant, righteous decision. Cult leaders know that the human ego will do almost anything to avoid admitting it was scammed. They use a behavioral loop called the foot-in-the-door technique. They don't ask you to give them all your money on day one. They ask for a small, reasonable favor, then a slightly larger commitment, then a minor sacrifice. By the time they ask you to empty your bank account, you have already justified hundreds of smaller sacrifices. To refuse the final demand means your brain has to process the unbearable reality that every sacrifice you made before this moment was a lie. So you pay. Your brain actively deceives you to protect you from the trauma of realizing you have been hacked. But what happens when the illusion starts to crack? What happens when a follower accidentally sees behind the curtain and realizes the leader is a fraud? Why don't they just run away? Because of the most devastating psychological trap of all, identity foreclosure, combined with the sunk cost fallacy. The cult leader doesn't just isolate you from your friends and family. They isolate you from your former self. They systematically destroy your previous identity, your hobbies, your career ambitions, your personal style. Everything is erased and replaced with the group's collective identity. Years go by. You have invested your money, your youth, and your entire social network into this group. If you leave, you aren't just walking away from a community. You are walking away from the only identity you have left. To the heavily manipulated brain, leaving the cult doesn't feel like escaping to freedom. It feels like psychological death. They stay not because they still believe the lies, but because the psychological cost of stepping into the terrifying void of the real world is too high to bear. They would rather live in a familiar nightmare than face the devastating reality that they have to rebuild their entire human identity from zero. This is the ultimate hack. The cult leader doesn't keep followers in a physical prison. They manipulate the followers into building the prison themselves, and then they hand the followers the key, knowing they are too terrified to ever turn the lock. Dangerous groups do not succeed because they are filled with evil masterminds. They succeed because they have weaponized the deepest, most beautiful parts of human psychology. They exploit our evolutionary need for community. They weaponize our desire for a higher purpose. They hack our biological capacity for loyalty. But here is the most crucial psychological insight you will ever learn. You don't need to join a compound in the woods to be a victim of this programming. These exact same psychological mechanisms are operating right now in toxic romantic relationships, in hyper-aggressive startup cultures, and in polarized internet communities. Any person, group, or organization that demands absolute loyalty isolates you from outside perspectives and punishes you for asking questions is running the cult protocol on your brain. The only defense against a psychological hacker is radical self-awareness. The moment someone demands that you stop trusting your own intuition to blindly trust theirs, the hack has begun. Empathy and loyalty are your greatest strengths, but if you give them to someone who refuses to be questioned, they become your psychological destruction. Think carefully about the environments you are a part of right now. Have you ever stayed in a toxic situation, a relationship, a job, or a friendship, simply because you had already invested too much time to walk away? Let me know how you finally broke the programming in the comments below. If this video opened your eyes to how your brain can be hacked, hit the like button. Make sure to subscribe to MENTRA and keep joining us as we expose the hidden psychological mechanisms controlling human behavior in future videos.